We are live right here on Fake Chats. I'm your host, Andrew Burnett, and today I've got my great friend, Victoria Robinson, who is the founder and CEO of ReAssemble. Victoria, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here today. To start off, tell people a little bit about where Assemble actually ReAssemble came from and the background of how it came to be.
Well, unfortunately, Andrew, 37 years ago, I chose to have an abortion. I was a single mother with two little girls that were they were 9 months old and three when their father abandoned us and left. And about, a year later, I met someone, fell madly in love, and then I ended up pregnant. So I was already struggling as a single mom. So when my boyfriend basically said, you know what you need to do, you could barely take care of the two you have, I knew he was right, although I also knew the outcome of a pregnancy. So I was lied to. I was manipulated by a multi-billion dollar abortion industry into believing that the best choice for me as a single mom who could barely take care of the children she already had was to have an abortion. I was also told since I was only 6 to 8 weeks pregnant, there wasn't anything there anyway but a blob of tissue. So it's easy to manipulate women in this very vulnerable time of crisis. So I believed all the lies, and I should have known better because I had already had two children. So it's not like I didn't know the outcome of a pregnancy. However, the abortion industry is very clever at convincing women abortion is the answer when they don't even give them other options. So the moment I walked out of that abortion clinic on a Saturday morning, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my life. And the woman I was who walked into that abortion clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina, was not the same one who was now walking out. So I buried and buried and buried that pain, that guilt, that shame, that regret, told no one. I thought I'd be rejected by everyone. I already felt like God must reject me. He must hate me for what I'd done. So that was for 10 years. And then I found a pregnancy resource center in Concord, North Carolina, and after I started volunteering there, probably feeling like if I did enough of that, it would make me feel not this heaviness upon me. And maybe then God would forgive me. I found out about something called abortion trauma recovery. And that was 28 years ago. I went through a weekend model retreat. And then I told the ladies who took me through that retreat to teach me what they'd done for me so I could do for other women. And now I have been conducting these retreats all across the country for the past 28 years.
So, at what point in your life was your eyes open to the abortion industry and the truth behind it?
Almost immediately. Almost immediately, Andrew, but I couldn't tell people anything because then they'd know my secret. And, I started thinking about the things the abortion clinic worker was telling me. What she said, if this was so harmful, this was before the abortion, as I was sitting in her office to hand her $350 cash before they killed my baby. She said, honey, our government would not allow this to be legal if it could harm you. And there's nothing there but a blob of tissue anyway. And I believed her. I believed her. So when the lies continued that she said to me over and over again after I left there, I hated myself for believing her. I hated myself for falling for the lies. I knew they were lies because I looked at my daughters and I thought, they were never blobs of tissue to me. They were children I wanted from the moment I found out I was pregnant and that test was positive. So then it just takes common sense. I just started thinking about it and I felt even more stupid that if I told someone what I've done, they'd be like, "Guy, I thought you were somebody that was a lot more intelligent than that." I just felt like such a fool that I bought into it, that I kept my secret. But after the 10 years when I went through healing, I knew I could not keep my mouth shut because there were too many women that were going to walk in a clinic and hear the same lies I heard, buy them, give them money, they kill your baby, and they leave you left with the ramifications of the choice. They leave you in pieces. So what we do at ReAssemble is we help these people reassemble their broken, shattered lives back together again. And we're not just helping women, Andrew, we're helping men and also couples, because it is not just women who are hurting and devastated by abortion.
Let's talk about the church here for a minute. When it comes to abortion, it seems to be a taboo topic that most pastors don't want to cover in their pulpit, like
Mhm.
it's some unforgivable sin. Tell us
Mhm.
what you think about that.
You sure you want me to tell you what I think?
Go ahead.
I feel like God's called me to antagonize religious people, and I'd like to start with a room full of pastors. We have got pastors in this country today that are more interested in not getting canceled and more interested in this woke culture. We have instead of of influencing the culture, Andrew, we have allowed the culture to influence the church. I have to beg pastors to let me speak practically, literally. And they still look at me and say, "Nah, I like what you're doing. I believe in what you're doing. You're a really good speaker and a good preacher for a woman. But if I bring you to my church, Victoria, you're going to offend my pro-choice congregants. If I bring you to my church, you might upset those who've already had abortions." And I tell them, first of all, why do you have pro-choice people sitting in your church? Now, granted, when they start coming, that's one thing, but are you even trying to convert them? If you're not speaking about the sin of abortion, of course they're pro-choice. And you've got one of four people sitting in your church, pastor, that have had an abortion, who are internalizing it to mean Jesus doesn't forgive. That is the one sin that he won't forget because my own pastor won't talk about it. So you're believing lies. Let's be honest, Pastor. This has nothing to do with that. It all has to do with your popularity, and you don't want to offend, and you're too afraid. You're more interested in what the culture thinks about you and the world than what Jesus says.
And Jesus ordained life. So we ought to be more about pro life than about any kind of choices, because if you don't make the right choices, you're not going to be alive anyway.
First of all, that's a given if you're a Jesus following believer. I tell Christians who tell me they're going to vote for this incredibly insatiable Democratic Party who
Right.
have an unbelievable desire to kill unborn children up to birth and following birth, if that's the case. And if you're a Christian and you look me in the eye and you can tell me in good conscience you can walk into a voting booth and vote for that party, then I question your Christianity. And I am sick and tired of people being afraid to offend. It is time to offend. You are not doing any Christians any service by not telling them the truth. If you are a Christian, woe to you who vote for the party of death.
And let's talk about it. Planned Parenthood has their mobile van set up right outside of the Democratic National Convention. I believe they said over 25 babies have been killed so far, and every time slot on their schedule has been filled.
It's despicable. It's literally the sacrifice of children to Moloch right before our eyes in 2024, right outside the Democratic convention. You cannot deny what is happening in the Democrats, in the Democrat Party. Christians can't deny it. No one can deny it. If you vote for that party, you are a party to murder. And I'm sick and tired of trying to sugarcoat it because it's the truth. It's the truth. Shame on you. Beg God to forgive you. Repent, get on your knees. And then I would have more respect for them if they voted for, well, Trump this, Trump, then don't vote for Trump. But I'd have more respect for them if they did not vote than to vote for this party as a Christian. Now, I don't expect people who do not know Jesus to know any better. They're ignorant. They're blind to the truth. They are walking around with scales on their eyes. The Lord has given them over, some of them, and they're going to pay their own price down the road if they don't figure this out and get right with God. But I'm talking to Christians because if the Christians don't rise up in this election, it's over. The church has failed miserably when it comes to the abortion issue, completely failed miserably. They haven't done enough. They haven't stood up enough. And Andrew, I'm just sick to death of hearing these pastors spew their idiocracy and want to know, what Bible are you reading?
I mean, because if we go back into the book of Psalms, it tells us, while you were in the womb, I knew you.
It says, before you were
Before you
formed
were in the womb.
in your mother's womb, I knew you. This should be the one issue Christians care about. Sure, taxes, all, my gosh, though, if you look at the plan, their plan for taxes, for gosh sakes, unless you're an idiot when it comes to the economy and math, I can't even comprehend how you could even think that's good for this country. But let's put that aside. All their other policies, which are horrific for this country. Abortion alone should be the issue that you want to know, that you want to know where they stand. I am a one issue voter. I don't care where you stand on those other things. But if you cannot protect the most innocent, how can I expect you to protect me, my family, and this country if you're not even willing to do that?
I mean, my God, I mean, just not abortion, but grocery inflation prices.
It's
I mean,
it's it's asinine, Andrew. It's asinine for people to believe Trump created what's happened in the last 3.5 years. He had nothing to do with it. No one can say we weren't better off when Trump was president. Nobody can say that. And thanks to Trump, whether you hate him or not, if you're a Christian who cares anything about children in the womb, he is the one God used to overturn Roe. Now, do I believe that Trump is the savior of the world? No, there's only one, and his name is Jesus. Do I believe he has character flaws? Absolutely. There are things about his ego and things that come out of his mouth that make me cringe. There are things that he's done that make me cringe. But I'm telling you, if you look at each party side by side, there is no contest. There is no other option than to vote for Trump. And you Christians who want to say, well, I'm not going to vote at all, I can't stand either one of them, that's a vote. And you'll be held accountable for that too.
and then you hear Christians on the side of the fence that say, "Oh, I'm voting for the lesser of two. It's the lesser of two evils, so I'm not going to vote." You know, do they not know that the Democratic Party can take their name off of that sheet of paper and just go ahead and add their name to the wrong party?
I tell you, Andrew, I look around and I see people, they're not all bad people. They're just ignorant. They've bought into the lie. They're watching too much of CNN and all that other fake news. And they're listening to what these people who worship the left are saying to them, and they're believing it. How about Christians? Go to your Bible. How about Christians? Spend time in prayer. How about Christians? Stop looking at CNN to be your morality test. How about going to the Word of God? What a concept.
And you know, I mean, that's the thing. And I'm sure there has been many memories at the retreats that you have spoke about. But what's one that comes to your mind when it comes to a woman that you've ministered to that's been through the time of abortion?
Oh my gosh, there's too many to list, but I mean, these women are broken, they're devastated, they feel that their life is over, that God could never love them, he could never use them, that they believe the lie that no one would ever want anything to do with them, that this is their penance in life for the rest of their life. And I have to remind them, Jesus did not just die on the cross for your unborn child that was murdered. He died on the cross for you. And thank God, I know I'm very grateful for his grace and mercy. I am very grateful for his forgiveness, or I'd be doomed. But I'm so thankful for it that God can take what the enemy meant for evil in these people's lives who have been devastated by abortion and turn it into good. And that doesn't mean they have to do what I do, speak around the country, speak in churches, speak wherever, sharing my own story. They may never share it with anyone publicly. It might be with a friend who's considering an abortion, with someone at their workplace who had an abortion and comes to them and needs to someone to talk about it with them. But once people are healed from the abortion trauma, Andrew, after they go through something like a ReAssemble retreat, they're able to speak up. That is why the abortion industry doesn't want people to come to things like ReAssemble, because they know they're walking in shame with a masking tape over their mouth. They're not going to tell anybody that this really damaged my life. This almost destroyed me. I tried to kill myself. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a workaholic. I can't commit to a woman because I just have these issues with commitment, all of the different things these people go through after they choose abortion. They don't want people to know about it. So people like me, it's our job to speak up. And women will come, and men, on Thursday night to my retreats, and they'll say, I don't want to do what you do. I'm not ready to share my story with the world like you do. Do I have to do that? And I tell them, no, it's your story to tell. But by Sunday, Andrew, from Thursday to Sunday, their attitude changes. And their attitude is, I don't care who knows anymore. I want to help however I can other people understand how this has devastated my life. They need to know the truth before they walk into an abortion clinic, or they need to know if they've had an abortion, there's help available to them, like something like ReAssemble. And I'll tell you why that happens. Because, Andrew, from Thursday to Sunday, our retreats are so intense, but they are so healing that by Sunday, their identity is no longer in their abortions. It is in Jesus Christ. And
Amen.
that's when we don't care what people think of us. The only reason I can say to the world I had an abortion, I couldn't even do that alone in my bathroom in a mirror for 10 years. The only reason today that I don't care what anyone thinks about me when I make that confession publicly is because I know what he thinks of me. And that's all that matters.
That is all that matters. And thank God for prosperous voices that are speaking out, such as yourself. And then you got Dr. Abby Johnson that came out with the movie Unplanned. I mean, she's a very strong voice. And then you got Lila Grace Rose. If it wasn't for you women, there probably wouldn't be anybody speaking out against a certain topic.
There wouldn't be, but there's a lot more of us, and there's a lot more. It's an army is rising, and I'm telling you that I'm convinced, Andrew, that abortion trauma recovery, intensive work, retreats, the ones that are available. There's not enough available because I can't keep up with my demand. Is the backdoor approach to ending abortion. Because I truly believe when enough people like me do speak out, that's when the truth is going to be told. When people understand this is going to devastate your life. I'm also convinced, Andrew, that a lot of people who are pro-choice either have an abortion in their past or they know someone they love who's had an abortion. So they feel like they're hypocrites if they're pro-life, or they feel they will condemn themselves if they're pro-life, because who am I to say I'm pro-life when I'm one of those people who killed my baby or allowed an abortionist to kill my baby, which is what they did. You know, these women and men will tell me, I've always felt like a murderer. And I have to remind them, you allowed a murderer to kill your child, but you did it out of ignorance. The majority of people do it. Yes, there are those that celebrate abortions. That's a whole nother level of evil and demonic. But there are those people who walked blindly and believed the lies because the abortion industry preyed on them at the most vulnerable time of their life. But the abortionist, he or she is the one that knows exactly what they're doing. They're the ones who are the murderers.
And it's sad. I mean, it's sad that the government would lead people in a direction which is murder.
Well, the government is, I believe, taking a lot of handouts from. I think a lot of politicians are getting handouts underneath the table to make abortion to continue to push it on society. There are so many things tied to the abortion industry, Andrew: sex trafficking, rape, child molestation. You got to remember, if a young girl who is being trafficked becomes pregnant, they've got to get rid of the evidence. So these pimps are giving money to these abortionists, to politicians, to bring her through the back door. Trust me, they've been at my retreats, holding her down while they kill her baby. So this is all they all have that in common. So we think abortion is about one thing. It's about so many other things that our government and many in Washington are very heavily involved in. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's even a lot more than just money.
And we could take this episode a whole nother different way. We don't have enough time for it, with the sex trafficking industry being a whole nother multi-million-dollar industry.
Oh no, it's multi-billion, Andrew. Make sure you get that right. It's with a B. It's with a B, and it's headed for a T if we don't do something about it.
And it's sad. And it just shows what our government supports. I mean, sex trafficking, abortion.
Yeah. Well, because they're some of the biggest clients. I'm going to tell you, I've had some sex traffic victims that come through my retreats who have told me some incredible stories about the powerful judges, politicians, doctors, lawyers, community leaders that were their biggest clients. So we need to not forget, or we need to not keep get our heads out of the sand if we think that this is not what's going on, and they're going to be protecting each other. The other thing that I've heard from my sex traffic victims who come through retreats is that 99 to 100% of their clients are married people with
Wow.
families, with families who are deacons in churches, who are pastors in churches. So they're too afraid to drop names, which I don't need to know names, but their stories are incredulous.
And it's attacking the whole concept of family. There's no such thing as, family anymore. I mean, we could talk about the marriage thing, we could talk about abortion, we could talk about sex trafficking. It has ruined the whole concept of a American family that we remember back in the 70s and 80s. That picture of Andy Griffin comes to my mind where they're all sitting at the table enjoying family time. There's nothing like that anymore.
That's gone. That's gone, unfortunately. Families don't live near each other anymore. They're all spread apart everywhere. There's not that family community of everybody having Sunday dinners together. It's all changed, and it started a long time ago. They started this agenda decades ago. And honestly, it started back with Margaret Sanger. People need to go and look up Margaret Sanger. Go see Seth Gruber's movie, The 1916 Project, when it comes out. I'm talking back, it's in the early 1900s. Margaret Sanger, if I could sit down with any Black person who's voting for the Democrat Party still to this day, I would ask them, have you ever done your research on the Negro Project? Margaret Sanger hated Black people. She hated anyone she deemed unfit. And her agenda, she was very good friends with Hitler as well. He loved her books. She was a hero to him. If people would understand where this started, because that's when it started. It started way back then in 1916. I mean, I'm telling you, they would be unbelievably flabbergasted by how we got here today. Because if you say, how'd we get here? How'd we get here? Have you even read a book? Have you even done any research about the past and the history? They got here quickly, quicker than we have imagined, and they have accomplished their goals. Margaret Sanger, if she was alive today, would be applauding. The Democrat Party of today is the Margaret Sanger Democrat Party. Hillary Clinton said she's her hero. The Black community are voting for the Democrat Party, who wants them dead, who's never done anything for them. Go back and go research the Negro Project, that Margaret Sanger is the one who founded it. And boy, would that woman be one happy woman today.
Victoria, it has been an honor having you here on the program. Share with folks how they can find out more about ReAssemble, or if there's somebody needing help, tell them how they can do so.
Go to reassemblelife.com and you can find my website. Reach out to me through there or email me, victoria@reassemblelife.com, and we'll be glad to see if we can get you the help that you need. I've got chapters all over the country right now. I've been training pregnancy resource centers across the country to do these Reassemble retreats. So if I can't find you one that I'm doing, if it's full, I can find you someone that I've personally trained. So just get in touch with me and we'll do what we can. Thank you for having me, Andrew.